What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Welcome back to Let the Meat Toast. We are flying by the seat of our pants. We had a guest that rescheduled on us, but we also have a buddy who is driving through and is spending the night camping out here. And we were bullshitting about his travels on the road. He's been doing the van life thing for a long time and is very politically
I'd like to say I'm educated.
yeah.
I've got my agenda, but I'm polite when I'm on the road. I don't push it too hard, but I suss out other people's beliefs and kind of handle myself accordingly.
And
So,
it's been an interesting. We spent a bunch of time talking yesterday, and I kind of found it interesting that he's had these experiences where he's been engaging and interacting with people from all over the country, and is somebody who's not afraid to bring up politics and talk to them, and the differences and similarities about what we experience online versus what you experience with real people. And then bullshit. Like I said, we're flying by the seat of our pants. We didn't plan this one out, and he was gracious enough to step in. And there was a bunch of interesting stories last night, so we figured we'd let him share some with you guys.
I mean, I said I like to, kind of be gentle about this. Somebody approaches me and wants to talk. I always open with like, the world's on fire. Everything's messed up. There's problems everywhere. And then I'll kind of take their responses. I see what they complain about, and you can pretty easily gauge what side of the fence they're on. We can all agree that the world is messed up. We can all agree that there's a problem. Some people just have their priorities a little different than others. They think that this is more. Man, it's been tough to sometimes just kind of let things slide. It can be educational sometimes for both sides. Catch a lot of people that didn't know this or didn't know that, and again, I'm polite, and we're all out here in the world just trying to get by. Yeah, it's been interesting. Flat earthers and
And we'll get into some of the interesting people. But first, I want people to kind of know your background. So first of all, kind of how did you get into just being so politically engaged, and then how did you get into just driving around the country in a U-Haul van?
I wasn't political until 2016. I voted for in the presidential election, but 2016 is really where it amped up, and got excited for Bernie Sanders, of course, and just realized this is different. This is not normal. I have a TV reality star who says grab women. Like, this is not normal. So that became kind of like, no, you need to be vocal about it. You need to talk to those that are around you to see where they're at, and try to be on the same page. So that's what got me interested in just being up to date, being educated, being informed, having an opinion on things, so that when they do come up, you can express your opinion, and it's not just an ignorant, I don't know what I'm talking about, this is what I feel. You need some facts. And then as far as driving around the country, I mean, shoot, I worked in prison during COVID, and man, that was a little struggle. It was a struggle for everybody, the offenders, to the officers, everyone's program. And once it was done, I just said, I need to travel. I want to take some me time. I want to go around and see all the sites that I haven't seen. I like to avoid people for the most part because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know the background, their history. But it's going to happen. You're going to have those one-on-one interactions, or people are asking questions, and they just want to talk. Again, we're all out here trying to get by. It's been good. It's been good to see everything that I've seen. It's been good to meet people that I've met, even if there's some negative people out there that maybe have some viewpoints that I don't really respect. But that's their right. They have those opinions and do what they want to say. And all you can do is just try to give them a different side of it.
So how long have you been on the road, and where have you all been?
So this October will be 2 years. 2 years I've been on the road, and I started in
Wow.
Fargo, North Dakota, and I've just circled around the country. I just completed
Okay.
the lower 48, actually, like 2 months ago.
Hmm.
Kentucky was my last
Wow.
state. I almost boycotted it just because. Kentucky.
We got a decent governor.
So I've hit both coastlines, north, south, everything in between. I've got some favorites. I journal all my stuff, writing down where I've been, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, what I go back to it again, what I suggest to people. And I've made notes of some of the people that I've met. the more interesting ones, where they were at, and just little one lines. But and all you have to say is this guy in Texas is a flat earther, and I met him in the wild, and it was wild.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine being,
Right?
Jordan must have some really small ears, or something like that. I'm sure being, living somewhat of the transient life, like you meet a lot of interesting people who sometimes are like yourself, who are capable of many things, and this is a choice, and some people who this is their only choice, basically.
Yeah, I had the opportunity and the good fortune to really finance this life, and I count it as like my midlife crisis, whatever. It's temporary. But I have met people where you just kind of struggle with, like, you know, they're out here just getting by, and this is not a good living situation for them. This is not a desirable living situation. And yeah, uh, people living in tents with no cars, and they're just there because there's nowhere else to go. They don't have the money to pay rent.
Speaking of people living in tents with no cars, I think one of the most interesting stories you told me was about the white, almost windowless van and the family and that you were camping next to. Yeah, so is that the wildest one?
I think that's the one where I wanted to leave the situation. I did not want to be there and was not in a state to drive, physically.
Well, okay, so go ahead and tell everybody.
Rolling up on this group of people. It was a free campsite, kind of out in the middle of nowhere on the west coast. But they seemed like fine. Came up and talked to me. A group of like 8 people. But when they decided to show me, like, yeah, these are our guns. It's in their tents. So I'm like, okay, that's neat. And then when the one vehicle that they had for the 8 of them was the white windowless van that rolled up, I commented on the creepy white windowless van. He's like, oh no, we've got a window. And it's a long, narrow thing on the passenger side on the sliding door. And he goes, just big enough to put the barrel out the window and then drive away. And I was like, okay, neat. Gonna step on some very, gingerly, little, keep my opinions to myself.
Wait, you didn't, because what did they all call each other and everything, too, though?
Yeah, they were all family. So they were family. That's mother, that's father, that's brother, that's sister, that's grandma, that's uncle.
But they weren't
I don't think
family.
Really related.
I don't think they're using that correctly, unks. I think it means something different these days.
Yeah.
A group of people that came together and that's how they want to live. Or maybe that sounds bad. I don't know. Story, but interesting.
It felt very Charles Manson-y when he was telling me the first time, and then and then there was some NDs in the middle of the night.
Yeah, just the one. But I'm reading a book in my truck, and I hear a pop. And I kind of like, what was that? I step outside, and the father comes over, and he's like, hey, you hear that firework go off? And I was like, is that what that was? So I was really confused. Like, I didn't. And the brother comes up, and he's like, yeah, good job with the firework. And the guy pulls his shirt up and shows the revolver that he's got tucked in his waist, and he's like, yeah, I thought it wasn't loaded. Oh, a negligent discharge. Neat.
It's just desk popping.
Yeah, everybody does it.
You've never done
Yeah,
that?
I mean that's what you do when you start a new video game. Is you're just like pop pop pop. It's just starting. It's just doing real life role playing.
That's the one time that I think I did not want to be there. I was like, if I were in a better state, I would have driven away and just been like, I don't need to be around this crowd. It's playing with guns at a campfire. Like, I love my Second Amendment. Fine, we got issues in America, but like, don't be playing with guns at a campfire, especially when they're loaded. Rule the game. So.
I don't think, I've been around guns my entire life, and I don't think, I've never had a negligent discharge. I know that. I have not been always the safest, but, like, never had a negligent discharge, and never, like, been in a situation where I thought a gun was unloaded when it wasn't. And
That's the first rule. Treat every gun like it's loaded until you can verify, yourself that it's not. That's the first rule.
So that was one of the most wild. I don't know, what was your personal, just most like batshit experience being on the road with people out there?
With people, again, I'll go back to the flat earther every time because we didn't open with that. You can't just. I feel like maybe we should start doing that. Like, first question when you meet somebody new, is the earth round? Because if they disagree with you, I'm just going to be like, have a good day, and walk away. But no, we had...
Think of the conversations you would miss if you just opened with that and then walked away, because...
Would I really miss it? I'm like, yeah. Think of the conversations that I could save myself the time and mental agony of, are you trolling me? Are you serious? Like, I thought all flat earthers were just trolls. No, they believe that you can't believe everything the government tells you. Sure, I can get behind that. The earth isn't round. No. Like...
That's not the government telling me that. That's the entire global scientific community on the, globe that we live on, and then the pictures we've seen from space.
They're all in on it. All
yeah, that's part of the conspiracy is that they are all in on it. Yeah. I watched this really good documentary, probably 5 years ago now. It's probably a pretty old documentary, but it was on flat earthers, and the biggest theme that basically we walked away with was these people mostly just want to be part of a group because they have not felt like they've been part of a group their whole lives, or they're currently just feeling lonely, essentially. So I don't have a problem with flat earthers, generally speaking. If that's what they need for their third place, more power to you, because it's a relatively harmless conspiracy theory, but it is one of the more just not asinine, but doesn't make any sense at all.
No, and that's the thing too, because I've talked to a flat earther once before. It was sort of online. I was invited to be a guest on a online radio show or something. I don't know. And after we were done, one co-host asked me about it because his co-host was a flat earther, and I'm like, wait, no, you're serious? This was the first time I'd ever interacted with one in the wild, and I'm like, okay, I want to have a real conversation because I want to see where this is coming from, and it just got wilder and wilder, and everything. I'm like, okay, so what's the motivation? Why is the entire scientific community on the frisbee apparently that we live on telling you that the earth is flat instead of round? What do they have to gain by this massive cover-up? And it just got so wild. On the other side of Antarctica, there's this whole other place where there's all these resources and they don't want anybody else to know about them. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
The ice wall.
Yeah.
The ice wall.
Yeah. And so that... And it was just, it's everything, and the more you get into it, it's the further, they'll always have an answer, but the answers make less and less sense the more critical questions you ask. But I felt like he really believed it, but I've heard that too, Taylor, we've talked about that, and that's what I think MAGA is the fact that a lot of people just wanted to be a part of a club, and as long as you put on, the red hat, or you say the earth is flat, or whatever, you are automatically part of this club. And then you belong to something, and you feel like you're in on something that everybody else isn't in on, and it makes you feel special. And,
But the difference between flat earthers and MAGA is vast. When I said, flat earthers don't hurt anybody, obviously, I mean, other people. The MAGA cult is effectively hurting millions, if not billions of people.
Yeah.
Really the whole planet, if you consider climate change.
Every living thing on the planet is hurt by MAGA. I'm not comparing them in the amount of harm they do, just the motivation to join something so incredibly stupid. Because flat earthers and MAGA are equally as fucking dumb. There's no comparison. They're both equally as disconnected from reality. They both believe in incredibly wild conspiracy theories that are not based in even simple logical thought processes. So I feel like they're the same. It's just one is forcing us all to drink bleach, and the others are just I think the earth is just flying through space like a frisbee. And
I asked the question of this dude in Texas. I said, all right, you think the earth is flat, what about other planets? I was like, you can get a telescope and you can look at Mars. You can look at the moon. Like, well, maybe the moon doesn't. We can't see it rotate. But Mars is like, you can see different surfaces of Mars. You know, as it rotates, you can see different. And I was like, are other planets round? And he's like, yeah. It's like, so it's just us, just us that's flat. And there's no, like, how do you square that? How do you?
I mean, it
round
sounds
out?
like some sort of like
that.
sounds like some sort of creationist level like mindset where like you get this religious thing where like we're the center of the universe is the Earth, and they're just like, yep, that sounds good. We'll take that, and then we'll make us a frisbee.
I love Glenda in the comments. She's like, conspiracy theories are like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one.
I think it would be a fun hobby.
Yeah,
You know, I've seen the pyramid of conspiracy theories, and they're like, these are the believable ones that aren't hurting anybody, and then as it goes, and it's like, these ones are founded in some facts, but as it goes, then it just gets worse. And,
we did have somebody reach out who's a 9/11 not a conspiracy theorist, and we were like, no thanks. That doesn't
not gonna platform that, because that one is a
No.
harmful conspiracy theory, I feel like, and platforming.
Well, it certainly hurts anybody who's been affected by the 9/11 attack. So, especially on the anniversary too. He's like a week before. It's like there's just no shot. Like no way.
Yeah, I do want to say, though, that I love how all it took for all of the never forget 9/11 people to forget was the fact that a white supremacist got a one-way ticket to go hang out with Reagan. So, like, I didn't hear
I
shit
will
about 9/11
admit, like,
yesterday.
the couple days beforehand, I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be 9/11. Like, I remember. And then the day of, I saw somebody post something, and they were like, what's with all these flags half-mast? And for a second there, I was like, yeah, I don't remember why. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's 9/11. It's like, oh yeah, I knew it was that day, just forgot it was today.
Oh, but I mean, they're all a half staff for Charlie too, though, because apparently he's an American hero. Can't do it for lawmakers, but you can do it for
right,
a fucking Klansman.
I read this story that they flew his body on like Air Force Two. Is that?
Yeah, no. JD Vance personally brought it wherever the fuck they're setting up a new gender-neutral bathroom. So,
aren't they doing like they're bringing him to like something in DC, like in, I don't know if it's like in the White House, but somewhere like in the Capitol-ish, like they're gonna put him like whatever somewhere. Like I saw
if they buried that motherfucker in Arlington. Watch, that'll be the next thing. Is he's gonna get like full military on him and Ashley Babbitt just side by side getting lowered down.
Man, I have seen a lot of people calling him Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah, I know.
And that's pretty rough.
If that's our Franz Ferdinand, I mean, that is the worst timeline version of idiocracy. If a fucking community college dropout ends up being our fucking Franz Ferdinand.
I mean, that would track though with the rest of the. We need consistency in our story, and our story sucks. So
our story is fucking awful. So the flat earther was the same one who didn't believe in masks, COVID and shit.
That was a different guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that one was in, let's say, Utah. Dam. And that guy, it was, COVID's not real because, my daughter's got COVID. She got the vaccine, but she still had COVID. And I'm out here cleaning toilets, and I never got COVID. And I instantly responded. I was like, newsflash, COVID doesn't come out the butt. I was like, and you're at a campground. We're all outdoors. You've got minimal foot traffic. When I asked the dude, I said, what does your daughter do for a living? And he kind of looked down, got a little silent. And he's like, she's a nurse. And I just like, And the bad thing, this is, I said I open with, there's a lot of bad in the world. And that guy, I was like, the world's on fire. He's like, yeah, like billionaires own everything. He's like, yeah. Plus, they stole the election back in 2020, and I'm like, oh, you lost me, bro.
You had us in the first half.
Yep. It is one of those things, though. We were talking about this earlier, where there's a divergent point where everybody in the country, pretty much everybody in the working class, is on the same page until one point. So it's like we can all agree that the world is going to shit. Like things are not good at the moment. Rich and powerful people are exploiting us and harming us, and then it's like you get to like that point of like, all right, and like, why are these problems happening, and what are the solution? And that's where like it's a fucking hard right turn off a goddamn cliff. And it's weird how we can all acknowledge these same problems and then have such wildly different views of how to address them. Like, and what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about solutions, that's where a lot of people don't have a solution. They say that's not my job, to have the solutions. And if you try to bring something up, well, I don't agree with that, because this is gonna affect these people or those people, and that's where some of the conspiracy theories come out. And yeah, I can't say I got much in the way of people offering solutions on the road.
I
Nothing
mean,
anybody can agree with. That's the
I
point of contention.
I just
But
I would never expect a normal, non extremely politically engaged American, especially, to understand like a class economic analysis, because mostly of the Red Scare and like the propaganda against socialism and communism and Marxism, and like that's really the only economic analysis that is counter to capitalism and that has like kind of held up in any way. There's obviously like the whole libertarian Georgism and like there's more like obscure things out there, but that's even more less likely that somebody's going to understand that, other than libertarianism, I guess, is kind of like an American homegrown kind of ideology, you could say. But I just wouldn't expect most Americans, even you know regular people, to really understand class analysis.
I'll tell you one thing. I mean, a lot of people they might be scared, arming themselves. They say that's the solution. I need a gun, and it's like, oh, all right. Like, I'm not going to tell you no. Man, there's some people
A
that
gun isn't going to get you better healthcare or
No,
or a
no,
raise or like infrastructure that gets you cheap electricity. Like
I
an AR
mean,
is not going to fix it.
so hear me out. Luigi was attempting using a gun to get us better healthcare, and it hasn't panned out just yet. But they did start approving more, more claims right after that. So in a way, a gun did get some people better healthcare.
they weren't holding up
We'll
their
see about the long
anesthesia
term.
during their operation. They said, no, we'll let them stay. I don't want angry people anymore.
Yeah, at least
Now,
until they can get the CEO security tightened up a little bit more. Then they'll probably go back. But short term, just don't say it's. There's some potential solutions there. The Blair Mountain
yeah,
miners used guns to get raises. That did happen. Not necessarily for them, but other people eventually kind of got
yeah,
raises from that. So.
that's true. Armed resistance has worked in the past. It's generally not advisable on a large scale
No.
unless you're going to, do the whole French guillotine thing. But that's pretty rare, and especially in a
I was just gonna
Western
ask,
democracy.
what's the limit? Like, at what point? And I mean, I'm not looking for an answer because it's terrible. It's gonna be at this level, but like, how many of us are they allowed to sign a paper, deny their health care? How many thousands of people are we gonna let die preventably? That we could have saved grandma, we could have saved dad, and we don't. What's the limit? I mean, and I think there is a breaking point. I think once enough people are suffering, once enough people are experiencing it, it
I,
sucks.
I mean, I think unfortunately we are very close to that. Obviously with the increased violence that we've been seeing around the country, unless there's some dramatic change, if we have a very large peaceful resistance that basically demands accountability here and change, I hope that can be avoided. But I have a feeling that with the way it's going and the way that we are responding to all of this violence, especially political violence, we are going to be in a situation where something's going to break, and it's going to be that match that the tinderbox off, and that may have been lit here just a few days ago. That could be the next assassination. It could be the next school shooting. It could be the next person whose kid dies because they couldn't get health care because their insurance denied them. Whatever it is, it's like we are there, and there is enough animosity and frustration. It could be the next person who gets fired from their job because funding cuts and budget cuts and the fact that the economy's crashing. I mean, nothing pisses people off more and makes them more motivated than not being able to afford groceries. So
those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution
inevitable.
Right.
And so yeah, I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just always say that the point at which I would view it as necessary is when we have lost our ability to have an effective democracy, and we are approaching that, unfortunately. And when it's sort of like the gerrymandering thing. Like if you fix the process to the point where it no longer functions in any way whatsoever, beyond just like the gridlock, like that's sort of the way it's designed to work, unfortunately, is this like really slow back and forth grinding of progress. But when you have just overwhelming just one side, and that's the way that it's set up, you no longer have democracy. And that's the point when, to me, it makes sense to fight back in the way that like California is, or Illinois potentially. Like if you don't do that, then you're no longer participating in the society that you want to be. And unfortunately, you need another revolution to put that back in place. If you're taking away what America was founded upon, and a representative democracy, then we need to put it back.
They just had something, South America, Silva, he had his own little coup, and their Supreme Court found him guilty. The dude's doing 27 years, 70 years.
Oh, Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil, there we go. But, I mean, it's like, good. They got it right. There's some accountability for those that if they're not going to follow the rules. There needs to be accountability, and I feel that's a big problem here as well. There's no accountability for those that are causing problems. They're screaming loud, and nobody's going to tell them. I'm got on the watch my new strategy. They won't tell me no, and he's just running with it. So, no accountability.
Well, even if they tell them no, like their ability to enforce their judgment is pretty limited. So it's really surprising. I always think how like fragile everything was actually held together. And we're looking back at it now, like it was only held together because people wanted it to be. And when people don't want it to be, it seems like there was no safeguards actually in place. So,
and that's really what it comes down to. Is we kind of viewed our democracy as this unbreakable system because we've got our balances of power and our separations of power, and we have all of these laws in place. Say if you do this, this happens and everything. But all of those things only work as long as we agree that they need to work and enforce them. And as soon as we stop doing that, I mean, it's just words on a paper. That's all it is. And words on a paper are meaningless without people to believe in them and enforce them. And I mean, that's where we're at now. Is people don't believe and enforce. I mean, the people that have the ability to believe and enforce them are not doing that. And they're not even trying. Like, I mean, with the judicial system, the fact that, the courts haven't at least tried to engage the U.S. Marshals to enforce some of their rulings that they're blatantly ignored, and just see where it goes. Like, say that you're doing something, and then follow some sort of accountability. But, of course, the Supreme Court has completely backed off of... They're not even writing opinion on their rulings anymore as to how they legally came up with these ridiculous things, like why it's perfectly acceptable now to stop brown people because they're brown, and ask for them.
But take away their affirmative action because they're brown.
Yeah,
I saw that. I was like, how can you make the same judgment? Oh, it's okay if you're stopping people to possibly arrest them if they're black or brown, but giving people education based off of whether they're black or brown, that's illegal. Yeah. But stopping them unconstitutionally, no, that's fine actually, no big deal.
And the point that they don't even have the decency to
like lie to our faces,
like this is anywhere underneath the guise of legal interpretation, because they're not even writing opinions on how they came to it. Like they still wrote opinions about Citizens United, which is fucking ridiculous, but they still wrote an opinion about how they came to that conclusion.
Corporations are people, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a ridiculous opinion, but at least they had to do some sort of mental gymnastics and explain it to us. And now they're like, yeah, no, we just decided that you can pull over brown people and arrest them because you feel like it. and we're
Even
not
though
going
it's
to
a
tell you
complete
why.
reversal, it's a complete reversal of like rulings within the last 20 years. Like literally in Arizona, we dealt with this. Like we already did the thing. We already ruled. It was unconstitutional. And now you're just like, actually, even though it's basically the same people, we're just going to change our minds.
I mean, didn't we do it with stop and frisk in New York too? Wasn't
stop and frisk in New York? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was also another thing. Yeah. So there was multiple times.
It just blows my mind. Like that's where we're at. And then once again, going back to this unbreakable system, and then it's like, oh yeah, you give these people lifetime appointments and no governing authority over them, like nobody to hold them accountable. And they can just come out and be like, yeah, we read the rule book and decided that nobody can tell us what to do, and that's our right. Like that's our position within the Constitution, and the government is to interpret the Constitution, and we interpreted the Constitution as in there is no authority above us. And they're like, cool, that's a thing now, I guess. And nobody's thought like, yeah, we gave these people this power to just kind of rule about how laws are interpreted and enforced, and then didn't think that there should be some sort of external accountability to that.
Well,
these were honorable, decent people in these positions of power. We used to believe that they were good, and now that the corruption and filth just rises to the top unchecked. And
yeah, I mean, the only way that you could get around the Supreme Court is by making constitutional amendments. And we just like the way that the political parties have been propped up to basically be this 50-50 battle up to this point. It's impossible to have any sort of remote chance of a constitutional amendment. So effectively, the Supreme Court has no leash.
I mean, and then the other check or balance on that would be impeachment. But again, with a 50-50 battle, you've got absolutely no way to impeach a Supreme Court judge. And so again, there's no effective check on their power. And then what I don't understand is there's no effective check on their power, and yet they are still being Trump's little bitch. Like how are you the most powerful governing body right now in the United States, and you are just bending over for a dementia-riddled fucking Cankles queen?
Is it called compromat?
Yeah.
There's dirt on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, release the files.
Yeah.
But I think that's, when you've got dirt on somebody and they're going to step in line, they're not going to give up power, even if you don't have dirt on them. It's the status quo. They're not going to change the status quo, because why should they? They're in power. They make the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to tell me no?
Well, right. And, if Trump does decide, Amy Coney Barrett is actually a traitor, and, I don't know if he can get the whole Republican Party in the House and Senate to change their minds, and then I don't know how many Democrats are going to be like, actually, he's wrong, and we're going to keep her in on purpose, like, even though she's one of the more somewhat moderate or independent people, like maybe half of the Democrats still vote against Trump. There you go. Then you have enough to impeach, and then he can replace somebody else.
I mean, Roberts needs to be impeached.
Well, he would never be impeached because he's I guess he would have to go after one of the Republican ones, because there would never be enough only Republican support to impeach one of the democratically Democrat nominated ones. But that's a way to keep them in check, I guess.
So what, kind of back on the topic of you running around the country and meeting people, what has been the most positively surprising experience you've had out there on the road? And
okay, so positive experiences is not meeting people, but no, when I do meet people, I mean, it's really nice to meet people that are on the same page as me, that, that's an ally, somebody that's out there in their camper and they're flying their pride flag, and I have to approach them and just say, hey, props to you for flying your flag. And this couple was like, well, if they're going to fly theirs, we're going to fly ours. And it's good to find allies, but again, you have to kind of be gentle with your questions if they're not out and open about that. But it's really nice to find, a German couple that's, visiting the country. And the first thing I said was, sorry for my country, and they're like, yeah, and then we just rolled for hours talking about, they just had their election where their little right wing party came in like second place. So he was like, yeah, it's all over, it's everywhere. It's like, yeah, and it's nice to find people that are allies out in the wild, where it's again, we all think the world's messed up. We can all see it. Everything's on display. What is it? The revolution will be televised. So there's numerous. But yeah, the German couple, and shoot, there was another. He was a ranger. He's also German, different campsite. But and again, when you just ask the few questions, and then you can tell where they're at, and then it's free. It's free to just talk about, like, man, wouldn't it be great if we all had social health care? What a world would that be? We join the other 32 industrialized nations that have social health care.
Yep.
It'd be glorious. But don't say that to the wrong person, because then they'll those poor people don't deserve health care. It's like, Jesus wouldn't agree with you. I'm not religious, but I can tell you for a fact that, like, read your book.
Jesus was out there distributing free healthcare. That was like half his whole shtick. Free healthcare and food for everybody. That's what he was out there doing.
Don't kick down. Don't kick down. If somebody's got a worse situation than you, how can you help them? And it's not your job to help them, maybe necessarily. Like, so many people, they don't have the time to help. They don't have the resources to go help. Maybe they're just inundated with their own lives. It's your job to elect the people that are going to help them. That is your job in a society. That's why we come together, to make a better experience for everybody. Yeah. So as far as positive experience on the road, that's it. No single one individual, but when I meet those people,
I meant like surprising, where it like caught you off guard that they were an ally, were on board, were like
elderly. When I find elderly people that are on board with progressive ideas, I'm just like, awesome, because you've already had, your whole life, you had cheap housing, cheap education. Things weren't as bad as they are now. And for them to sit there and say, I want a better world for my grandchildren, and they're worried about climate change, and they're worried about democracy, they're worried about, everybody's so angry, and they don't want the world to be like this. So I'll say I've met a few elderly folks that are retired. They're doing the same as me, just driving around the country. And so that's just refreshing to see older folks that are still in the fight, that they haven't signed out and just said, not my problem. That's a younger generation problem.
This is something I've actually kind of found interesting. So the other day, when Nepal started burning everything down and starting their own little revolution over there, and it's very much Gen Z, at least that's what the headlines have been saying, is like Gen Z is burning down Parliament building, or however Nepal's government system works. And I posted a comment. I was like, man, I wish American Gen Z would have this kind of energy. And Gen Z gets really upset when anybody says anything bad about them, and so they start jumping on me in the comments like, well, maybe if your generation hadn't fucked everything up. And I'm like, honey, I'm a millennial, darling. Sugar plum. Yeah, let's let's go over when things started getting fucked up and when we came of age, and then we'll talk, all right? And then another one's like, well, maybe if you guys were better role models and showed us how to have this energy. And I'm like, honey, again, when you have boomers as your role models, we can have some talks. And I'm like, but here's the thing, and then they're like, they're just asking Gen Z to, like, clean up their mess or like, I'm asking Gen Z to clean up their mess. I'm like, no, motherfucker, I'm out there. And this is the thing I've noticed, is every time I'm out there, I am one of the youngest people out there. At every protest, at every political meeting or organization thing, like, I'm the baby. Everybody's like, oh, look at the young whippersnapper. I'm 5 years old. Like, I'm not the kid anymore, but I'm the kid at these events. And so even though, like, the boomers and Gen X are the ones who have kind of, like, Gen X's apathy and boomers just pure destructiveness on political issues up to this point have caused these issues, it's still, those generations are the ones that are actively in the streets and being involved. And I think that that's what's frustrating, is like seeing Gen Z not involved and not politically engaged, when historically it's been younger generations leading political engagement. And I don't know what it is.
But they got the Fortnite dance down a lot, so.
Hey, I mean, I could sing the Pokemon rap, like, pretty on point, when I was, 20 years old too, so I can't really begrudge them a Fortnite dance.
No, like
The,
everybody's
the
got
skibbity
their
stuff, the skibbity stuff is questionable. The skibbity toilet's weird, but everything else, I get on board with.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not begrudging their, even if I don't understand it or I'm the grumpy old man now, like that's stupid style or stupid trends or all that shit. Like that's fine. Every generation has their stuff that older generations feel that way. It's just it's a weird thing to see a younger, and I had a lot of hope because like early on like they were getting politically involved, like when they were organizing on TikTok to go buy out, or not buy out, but reserve all the tickets at a Trump rally and then not show up. Like that was fucking genius, and I'm like, man, Gen Z has got this like on lock. Like I am ready to step in behind Gen Z and just support them being the revolutionary generation. They're going to be our new silent generation out there, kicking ass and taking names and hopefully making good music in the process, for social justice and change. And then it's like, then suddenly they just took this huge shift to the right and just stopped being involved at all. It feels like, at least from my perspective, and kind of what
At
I've
least
seen.
Gen Z
And
men. I think Gen
yeah,
Z women didn't take a huge shift, but yeah, Gen Z
well, yeah,
men got
women in general didn't shift to the right unless they were middle-aged white women. So
middle-aged white
Rabbis?
women.
Is that
it's specifically
Middle-aged,
middle-aged white women. They're the only like
yes,
female demographic that
just
went for
went
male.
way, like what was it? I think like 80%. Jordan, is that? I think
Yeah,
that's what it was,
I
like
mean,
80,
I don't know if it was
85%.
80%, but it was definitely a majority.
It
It was like
was it was
60% or
really
something like
it was
that.
really high. It was high enough.
doing what their husbands told them to do? So, like,
Yeah, so I don't know, but that's that has been. But then going back to elderly people, like that's been my experience. Is like a large portion of my audience is um 50 to 70 years old, especially on YouTube. And when I'm out there and being politically engaged, like again, I'm the youngest person there. It's a lot of older people who are doing the bridge protests and the sidewalk protests, and they're just standing out there getting heckled, and it's little old ladies, retired ladies, and stuff like that with their signs, and like fuck you guys too, I don't care. And I'm like, I love these people, and like so it's inspiring to see, but also disheartening that those are the people
that's what I
leading
was
the.
just gonna say. That I feel bad. Like they should be living just a quiet, peaceful life,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying their retirement. So that's why I get, when I see them with these beliefs, and it's yeah, it fills me with hope. But man, they should just be chilling at home. They should be petting their animals and hoping that their grandkids call. Like they should be living a mellow life. But yeah, here we are. Grandma's got to be in the street fighting for the rights for her grandchild
Mm-hmm.
because her
Yeah.
grandchild's trans or something. And
Um, was it King's Day? We were driving in Minneapolis, and there was this probably had to be 80-year-old man sitting on the corner of the street holding up a yeah, thanks Jordan, that was bugging me, holding a no kings sign. And I was like, respect for that dude to spend, I mean, an hour, 2 hours, I'm sure he was out there just taking the time out of his day.
Right. And I do gotta say, just in like coming from a place of understanding, especially as a millennial and going through this, is political engagement is a lot more difficult today in a lot of ways than it was you know 50, 60 years ago, just because of the fact that you have to have free time to go protest, and you have to be able, when you can't afford to pay your bills and you've got two working families and kids, being politically engaged in any way, not even protesting, like being involved in your local political organizing unit, and
even just being informed.
yeah,
A
even
lot of
just,
people don't have the time or
Mhm.
the heart to keep themselves informed.
And I think that is a big difference, is when you had a single income family, where you had that free time where one of the parents could go and be involved with their local political party. They could be involved in their kids sports. They could be involved in a local nonprofit. They could go to the protest. And now that's it's a lot harder for people. So I mean, like, I have empathy and understanding for that. Obviously millennials are experiencing that too, and I think that as well, elderly people, a lot of them are retired and have nothing else to do, and they can go stand out there and do that, which is, it's good. I gotta say too, I really do love when like the elderly people bring their grandchildren, like the young grandchildren, to the protests and stuff, and are getting them civically engaged and involved. And I'm like, that's inspiring to see.
So I've commented on that in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a protest. It was parents were out there with their children, in the strollers, and I went up to them and I was like, "You're gonna have pictures of this event. Your children are going to see these pictures, and they're going to be filled with pride.
Mm-hmm.
Some years down the road, when this is all history, and hopefully we go in the correct direction, they're going to be proud of you, that you were involved in this, and that you took actions, whatever it is." Yeah.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Because you think about when we look back at grandparents or great grandparents' pictures at like March on Washington or something like that, if they were involved in those kinds of things, like that's instant civic engagement cred. Like that's freedom fighter cred. Like that's cool stuff. And yeah, I 100% agree that I think having those pictures now will be powerful for hopefully future generations to be engaged.
And on the opposite side, 40 years from now, when the high schoolers have the homework assignment of go through your grandparents' social media, and a lot of if you care to share with the class that your grandfather had the red hat, feel free to bring who knows. So that it could go the other way. Everything is recorded. This is everything's on social media. This is stuff that we didn't have 100 years ago.
I didn't even think about the social media time capsule homework assignment.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be rough. It'd be interesting, man. I wish I was talking to the German people you were talking to at the campground, because it'd be interesting to ask them a similar question. Like, you are in Germany, you probably know people who were or have family members, people you're relatively familiar with who were alive during that time, or were relatively close relationship wise to Nazi Germany. And like, how does that go? Were your grandparents the good Germans? Were they actively involved? Like, how does that treatment come going down the line? Like, it'd be interesting, because we're going to be experiencing that here in 20, 30, 40 years for sure.
We already had our beer hall pooch. That was January 6th. We had our own beer hall pooch, and there were people arrested at that, and one of them wrote a very famous book while he was in prison, Mein Kampf. So we had that already. Yeah, we're going forward right down the same freaking thing that we said would never happen again.
I keep saying over and over again, if we're gonna go do all of this horrible shit, could we at least come up with an original storyline? Because just doing a really shitty rewrite of what's already happened is boring. I want something new and interesting.
Come on though. That's what America does best, though. That's like Hollywood, remake. That's what we do.
This is just the 47th Marvel movie of.
It does help though to know the playbook. To be like, I've seen this one before, and you can call the plays before they come out.
You think it would help, but then we're still so far down this line. Clearly, it's not helping very much.
No, because the people, the capitalists still have power in the United States, and they generally are pro-fascism. So even though they know the playbook, they're like, yeah, I know, I'm doing the plays because that's what the playbook says I should do. Like they're never gonna help us in that sense. And so like to do a grassroots revolution, like that's difficult. Like that didn't exist in Germany. It did, but it didn't succeed. So like there is no playbook to overcome a fascist takeover.
Didn't South Korea do it kind of effectively without any violence?
You mean recently?
I need to look into that more, but what?
Like the recent one? Like the recent coup and all that stuff? Is that what you're talking about? Or like in general in the past?
No, it was
They declared martial law for like a day, right? Is that what you're talking about? And then the people rose up.
I wonder what Jordan's talking about, because that's the one that I know of that obviously failed like before it started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember specifically. I just remember people talking about the fact that South Korea successfully thwarted an authoritarian takeover.
That was like less than what happened in Brazil. Like it was a lower scale. Like it was pretty minor and never really stood a chance of succeeding.
Yeah, Brazil, they had people march on their buildings, their unoccupied government buildings, I think. But yeah, that was a little more intense than South Korea. But again, with South Korea, I think they just Like within 24 hours, they were just like, "This is not happening. Arrest that man." I mean,
Well, and it was
January 6th.
in South Korea, it was just like one president who was like, "Oh, I'm going down, so I'm going to try to take over before I go down." Like it wasn't like a cultural movement like we're experiencing. So,
yeah. Well, and here Glenda in the comments said South Korea lawmakers had a spine too, and that's something like all of our lawmakers on both sides have been lacking for very long.
I mean,
apparently, Chuck Schumer's strongly worded letters have not been effective in thwarting fascism, and Republicans are actively trying to help fascism at this point. So
he's hoping that someday, his letters will be revered in the same way that, letters of Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton will be. And they're not ever going to be, because,
No.
you could, those people actually made a difference.
Jefferson and Hamilton shot motherfuckers before they wrote those letters. Like they went out and like, all right, no more king shit. We're gonna go gat some people, and then we'll write about it. And that's what you got to do to take. If Chuck Schumer came up there tomorrow on the House floor or the Senate floor and is like, all right, some motherfuckers getting shot in here unless we figure out this fascism thing.
Terrible.
About Schumer, that's crazy.
It shouldn't come down to that, but yeah, you need to ask, when are people going to grow a spine? When are they going to actively do, like we talked about earlier, if you're going to do this in Texas, California's going to follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
Fight fire with fire. If they're going to do the same thing, then when they call out California, you can't do that. It's like, I'm doing the same thing you did, that you're doing. Like, well, tell me how this is wrong, because if I'm wrong, then... But they don't care. Hypocrisy.
I mean, if Republicans didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all, and that's been it's what's good for me is not good for thee, and that's the way it has always been with them. And then they've gotten so used to just being able to bulldoze their way over everything, and Democrats are just like, well, you shouldn't do that. That's against precedent. Like, that's not by the rules. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool, go fuck yourself. And now when Democrats find, they're like, okay, fine, these are the rules you want to play by, we'll play by those rules. And they're like, oh, how dare you?
Yeah, I just don't really get where they expect this to go. Like if Republicans are operating in somewhat good faith, or at least pretending to be, and then they do something like this gerrymandering effort, it's like, how do you expect this to play out? Like, do you just expect to get the 5 seats and then get to do what you want to do? Like, how do you expect the other side to respond? How do you not expect that to go more scorched earth? And I just don't, to this day, I still don't think that Trump has it in him to start to do an actual coup by himself. Who's actually behind all this?
I don't think Trump's got it in him to walk around his bedroom by himself anymore.
Well,
that motherfucker
that's what I mean. Like who's
right now?
And we know who sponsors like Project 2025, but like still, it still feels crazy to me to think that there is actually a group of people who are influencing this administration in that way, who are able to control what's happening to the extent that they're like, yep, this is the time we're going to push for this new world order shit and succeed. I don't know. It still feels insane to me. Like, I see it happening with my own eyes, and I still find it hard to believe that like they're actively making a move. Like we all sort of understand like the forces of capital and like corporations have the ability to influence the way things happen, but in this sense, like a true government movement in like the way that it's happening, that still feels crazy.
I guess my thought in where they think or hoping this is going to go is the fact that Trump has been what the Republican Party has been missing this entire time, right? They needed a cult of personality. They needed somebody who they could get at least a not insignificant portion of the population behind to allow them to really push the policies that they have been building the foundation for all of these years, but haven't, because any other president tried to do 1/10 of the shit that Donald Trump has done, and they would have been, taken out of the White House and chained, right? And they've known this, and so they're like, he's got, we could count the amount of days that motherfucker has left on this earth in days, right? Like it might be a few months. If he makes it to the end of his term, I would be incredibly surprised.
I guess I'm just
so,
like, I'm trying to find the difference between like what happened between Reagan, who's like effective, essentially was the original cult of personality, to Trump. Like what happened in the Republican Party between then and them having basically the same level of power, institutional power then versus having that power now. Like, are they just completely radicalized now? Is that like in that, and that's the only difference?
I mean, I think because again, Reagan was the first page in this playbook, right? Like that was the first election that the Heritage Foundation won. Really, started in 1976.
Yeah,
and they used that cult of personality to again set the baseline foundation for everything that's going on today. But you can only do so much in 8 years, and it takes time. Like think about even the MAGA people today would not palate MAGA today from MAGA 16 years ago, right? Like if you were MAGA in 2016 and the stuff that was happening today was happening right then in 2016, even MAGA wouldn't palate it. It takes time to normalize that shit, and that's what Reagan did, and that's what Trump's been doing for a fucking decade. Is I'm gonna say this outrageous stuff and walk it back, so people are like, oh yeah, he really doesn't mean it, but it normalizes it in your head, and then when it does start to happen, it doesn't seem so outrageous. And honestly, I think if he had won 2 terms in a row, it would have been better than him having that break in between to continue doing that, because this has given them a 10-year span to work on radicalizing these people and normalizing a lot of this completely unacceptable, unnormalizable, or should be unnormalizable activity, to the point where we are now.
What I can't stand is how many years did we hear, if you elect Hillary, Biden, Harris, we're gonna have a police state. We're gonna have as like, what's happening right now? Where are all you motherfuckers that have been preaching that, we can't have a police state, we can't let this, as like, what's happening right now? We have National Guard being brought in on U.S. citizens. Where are all those people that were opposed to this? Mm-hmm. Because we can't elect the Democrat. And then it's like, well, now it's happening. Mm-hmm. Where are we?
I mean, I think it is just always the rules for thee, not for me. Like that's never was actually about the police state. That was just the wedge issue, the wedge like divisive.
They want the police state as long as the police are on their side.
Right. Yeah.
The boot's not on their neck, but they're cool.
So, right. And we were talking about this yesterday too, when it comes to like the normalizing of stuff, and how the same thing that Nazi Germany, that Hitler did, was you start with the trans people. If Hitler would have started right off the bat with the Jews full force, it would have failed immediately, because the Jewish population was such a big part of the population that everybody shopped at Jewish businesses and knew somebody who was Jewish, and maybe you had some bigotry towards them, but it's also like, all right, is it concentration camp bigotry, or is it just like, yeah, those people type of bigotry? But you take a fractional part of the population, like 0.04% or whatever the trans population is, and you can start to demonize those people, and nobody, like, most people don't know a trans person, they've never interacted with a trans person, and then you can just write whatever narrative you want about them, and then you can amp that up. You can amp it up to, the immigrant thing, and that's easy to do because there's this Schrodinger's immigrant that you're never going to meet, right? It's this violent drug smuggling criminal that's also stealing all the jobs but not working and taking all the benefits and all of that, and like, you've never met that criminal or that immigrant. And the immigrants, that give you your tacos at the local Mexican restaurant, they're super nice and you like them, but they're the good ones, and those aren't going to be the ones you go after. And it's that, again, that normalization process of you demonize the one person, but when people look back at Nazi Germany, they're just like, oh, he went after the Jews in this big population, and like, that's not what's happening now, although we're getting to that point with immigrants. No, Hitler started with the trans people and the LGBTQ community the exact same way the Republicans have in this situation, and that's how you build up to that large population and start putting those people in concentration camp and normalizing the fact that you are committed.
So I guess to me, then instead of a thinking of like it's just this like cabal of Heritage Foundation leaders that are like trying to like create this new world order, like this is the end state of a capitalist economic system, essentially, is like the easy, not the easy mode button, but like the economic rational explanation for how we just keep getting these things over and over and over again.
Yeah. And Heritage Foundation is a tool of end state capitalism and the powers that be. Like, because those people, the people that stand to gain the most, the billionaires and the big corporate leadership that fund all of these things, are looking to consolidate their power and wealth. They're always looking for more, and they need a way to do that. And Heritage Foundation is the playbook and the organizing unit for that particular end goal. And
was it? There's just it's like we don't have poverty. We have poverty. We don't have poverty because it's not that we don't have enough wealth. It's because the wealthy are never satisfied. Something like that. We've got to look at the top. So anybody that wants to pick down and look at, I'm like, those are not your enemies. You need to look up. Look up. They're the problem. Wish we were all on the same side. The only acceptable warfare, class.
I dig it. Oh. Well, now we got to find a way to create that that propaganda to where everybody understands like this is the people, and we need to identify a target that's like a class target and something that's actually recognizable and that people can get on board with.
I mean, everybody, the healthcare CEO, that was pretty bipartisan. I'm just thinking healthcare CEOs, that's the class warfare target right there. Like,
I think that's a good place to start, but I don't know.
Map out there that which companies are supporting this or not supporting this. So it's like if you want to speak with your wallet, there's options for people to take in every step. So seeing these boycotts of like Walmart or Target, neat. If that's how you're going to speak, that's how you're going to protest, it's not shopping somewhere or bringing your business elsewhere, go for it. That's what you can do.
Absolutely. And every place you can apply pressure, there's no wrong way to do activism, except for gatekeeping activism or, purity testing activism. That's the only wrong way to do activism. But if any little thing you can do, if it's just harassing your congressman once a week via phone or email, that's activism, and that's important. If if it's boycotting, if it's giving your money to organizations that are fighting the good fight, like donate to the ACLU, that's activism. So like it's stuff like that. Showing up to a protest is obviously activism. There's a million things you can do, and none of it's wrong. And it's honestly going to take all of it together to get the results that we want.
And the more we do it, the more coverage it gets. So the larger the group grows, the more people are going to see, I'm not the only one in this fight, so is my neighbor. So, and they're going to be more, they'll join in, because there's a lot of people out there that might be timid, that I don't want to get in this fight, I don't want to make waves, and then as soon as they see other people, they'll rally. They can't. We have that potential. I don't want to say make America great again. Make America smart again.
Make America great for the first time, maybe?
Right.
That would be...
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think I appreciate you coming on and filling in for us here quick. I think it's been a really good conversation, and I've enjoyed just hearing your stories about running around the country and some of the interesting people you've bumped into. And again, thank you everybody else for spending your time here with us every week, listening to us ramble on about things. We appreciate it. That's the reason we do it, is you guys listen. Obviously, if you want to support the channel more financially, there's merch at offthewagon.com. You can become a member on YouTube. You can subscribe on Patreon. We've also got Substack, which I think we'll try to figure out how to get the podcast posted on there eventually too. But I'm very bad at learning all of these platforms, but I'm working on it, guys. But anyway, otherwise, just sharing the podcast and listening to it, we really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in.